Okay, so a while ago, maybe a week or so ago, I put up a video answering 10 questions for atheists. This was actually New Year's Day that I put this up. And I got a comment, a long comment. Let's see if you guys can see that. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. I don't know how blurry it is, but whoops. I got a long comment on one of my videos from a user by the name of MOCHINE Fitness. And MOCHINE Fitness, so I answered 10 questions for atheists that had to do with atheism and why atheists act the way that they do, or why atheists believe the way that they do, why I believe the way that I do. And it was just like 10 questions that we did a rundown of. And it was, clearly by religious people trying to have like a gotcha moment. And of course, there usually isn't a gotcha moment because there's no evidence for God, of course. There's no evidence for supernatural things, because as soon as there is evidence for supernatural things, those things aren't supernatural anymore. They're natural. It used to be that fire was like supernatural, right? It was like some magical force. But now we know, of course, that physics and chemistry governs the way fire works. So I'm just going to go ahead and read out his comment here. And I know it's been a while since this comment was uploaded. I just got around to seeing it just in the past couple of days, and I hadn't got around to getting a video, so here we go. I'm not going to really read the whole thing, but I'm going to examine a couple of his arguments here and kind of like refute them. By the way, and this is going to be a little disclaimer that I'm going to put on here, this video, I'm not trying to necessarily be totally offensive to anyone's religion here. I'm not trying to shoot people down, but I just can't entertain the notion that there is such a thing as a God existing. And of course, I'm going to put it out on the internet. Let's see, he says, I did not have to expect to say this, but okay, I'm going to give you 3 from hundreds proof, but in the last, I advise you to read the Holy Quran yourself. Okay, so that's his religious text. Number 1, instinctive evidence. The instinctive evidence that God exists is the strongest of all for those who are not led astray by the devils. Hence, Allah says interpretation of the meaning. Okay. Here's a complaint that I have just for religious people in general. When a non-believer doesn't believe, by definition, there's always this sort of sense of, the religious people call that the sin of disbelief, or they've been led astray by devils, which of course plays back into their religion and whatever, and their worldview, even though there is no evidence to support the existence of devils and supernatural beings, at least none that we can see. At least no evidence that we can actually observe. Open this back up again. So he goes on to like extinction. Every person feels inside himself that he has a Lord Creator, and he feels that he is in need of Him. If some major calamity befalls him, he turns his hands and eyes and hearts and towards the heaven and seek help from his Lord. Okay, this does not prove, and this does not really provide any evidence that there is a God existing. It proves and shows evidence that in times of calamity, in times of neediness and hurt, human beings reach out for things. But of course human beings reach out for things. When we're babies, when we're infants, when we're children, we're taught to do this. When we have needs, we reach out to our parents. Okay, so of course we're going to want to like reach out for something, even if it's abstract and imaginary. That, and also you have to understand, this doesn't necessarily prove that any one particular religion is true, because I've experienced this myself, just wanting there to be something in the universe that I could reach out to that would help me. And yet, for me, it was always like the idea of Jesus or Yahweh, or, it was never Allah. It was never Zeus. Okay, so that doesn't really provide any evidence that, first of all, people can have strong convictions about certain things, like instinctive evidence. Like, there are people who truly believe and like instinctually know that Bigfoot exists, or that aliens exist, or that ghosts exist, or that unicorns exist. Of course, usually this is in the realm of mental illness and emotional illness, but still, it doesn't provide evidence. Every person feels inside himself that a Lord and a Creator, and he feels that he is in need of Him, and some major calamity befalls him. He turns his hands and eyes and heart towards the heavens, seeking help from the Lord. Okay, well, but how do you know Allah is the right Lord? What if it's Jesus? What if it's Zeus? What if it's, what if it's me? What if I'm God? Oh. Okay. 2. Tangible evidence. This refers to all the things that exist in this universe. We see around us the things that exist, such as trees, rocks, mankind, the earth, the heavens, seas, rivers. If it is asked, these things are so many, who created them, and who is taking care of them? These things are so many, who created them, and is taking care of them. Okay. So who is taking care of the rocks and the trees and the... Well, they don't need to be taken care of. They're rocks. They're trees. They exist. They don't need to be taken care of. They're not like children. They're not babies. They're not infants. They're not livestock or animals. There are natural processes that govern how these things work from the bottom up. You don't need a top-down, patriarchal figure to handle this. The answer is that these things came into being by accident, spontaneously, and with no cause, and there is no one who knows how they were created. And that is one possibility, but there's another possibility, which is that these things created themselves and are taking care of themselves. Okay, so let me just ask, did God just create himself? Like, who's taking care of God? Okay, and of course, I ask this question under the presumption that there is a God, which I don't believe that there is. But let's say that Allah is the correct God. Well, we'll even say that Jesus is the right God. So who's taking care of him? Who created him? Did he just create himself? Did he just... were they created by nothing, or were they themselves the creators? Well, this is the major fallacy that I see in how this guy is approaching the world here, and how he's approaching this so-called tangible evidence. These things, rocks, trees, the planet Earth, they weren't created in a top-down fashion. They were not created by, there wasn't like a person who was sitting up here and said, I'm going to make myself like a planet and a universe and all of this stuff. That didn't happen. Okay, at least as far as we know. Before the Big Bang, if there was a before, because as far as we know, time was created in the Big Bang. But we don't know what came before the Big Bang. But we'll say, okay, there was the Big Bang. That